reinforce my salvation. The spirit of knowledge, that I may know God and know myself, and grow perfect in the science of the saints. The spirit of piety, that I may find the service of God sweet and amiable, and the fear of trust, that I may be filled with the loving reverence towards God, and may dread in any way to displease Him. Mark me, dear Lord, with the sign of thy true disciples, and animate me in all things with thy spirit. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, so we've reached 95. That's a good sign. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I think we'll start with a very trivia-based question, and let's see how much or how well people know technology. So the first question that I have for people out here is, do you know who was the first person to go ahead and download information from the cloud to his tablet? You can just go ahead and type your answer in there so that we don't have to worry about turning on your mics. Let me see who's the first one to get that done. The first person to download information from the cloud to his tablet. Okay, Lester, that was pretty quick. Thank you so much. And that is true, because Moses was the first person to download information from the cloud, even before the concept of cloud came through, or before there was something we know today as the tablet. And what was the thing that he downloaded? It was the 10 Commandments. Okay. So we've already covered 7 of the 10 Commandments. If you remember, first commandment was done by Roselle. 3 commandments clubbed together by San, that was 2, 3, and 4. Elvira covered commandment number 5, which was very extensive and detailed. 6 and 9 were done by Bella, where she spoke about adultery and covered the fact that you shall not covet your neighbor's wife as well. And today what we're doing is commandment number 7, commandment number 8, and commandment number 10. Okay, 2 of these we're going to spend a little more time on, that's 7 and 8, because it's more about actions. Commandment number 10, we'll kind of wrap a little quicker because it's more about an inward grace or an inward requirement that you're going to give. Okay, so it's a fun-filled session, 3 commandments, lot of stuff to cover. That's the reason why I'll request you, if you have answers to the questions that I have, you can go ahead and put it up on the comment section. But if you do have questions, make sure you save it for your animator, because during the discussion later in the day, we'll go ahead and address all those queries that you may have. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the first one that we're covering today, which is commandment number 7. And that's the simple commandment of thou shalt not steal. Now, when we think about stealing, the first thing that comes to our mind is someone like a cat burglar, right? Someone who'll take something from your house and run away or rob something from you. And it's strange, in my case, they actually took my cat. So that was like the strangest thing that ever happened. But when it comes to stealing, the number of words, if you look at the slide over here that I've put up, there's so many words that talk about stealing, and it's considered very cool, right? If you kind of go ahead and get a steal deal, or there's something that you find, there's this very common saying, a lot of people say, right? Finders, keepers, losers, sweepers. So we'll go ahead and look at the different aspects that this commandment really covers, because what is stealing all about? It's not every time that you're going to take something from someone and run away. There are other aspects to it. And we're going to look at understanding what this commandment expects out of us. Okay. So let's get the base definitions correct first. What is stealing? As you see these 3 statements over here, they talk about what stealing really is. In simple words, the first definition talks about taking anything which does not belong to you and which the owner is not willing to give you. Now, this is something that starts right, I think, from the time we are kids. When your parents tell you, please make sure you don't take something that's not yours. Don't pick up things from the shop that don't belong to you. If you're taking something, make sure you return it back or pay for it to make sure that the person is getting what you're taking from them. Okay. The other thing that's kind of a little passive when it comes to stealing is when you're depriving something of what is rightfully theirs. Now, this could be something to do with not giving credit to your friends for something that they've done for you, not giving time to yourself also sometimes, because sometimes you're so busy with things that you steal away your own time. That sounds quite absurd, but when I explain it, you'll understand it better. And the last one that we talk about is the fact that you're taking another person's property without permission or legal right. And most importantly, you don't want to return it. Okay. You borrow it because you want to keep it. So we'll go ahead and look at what stealing entails and what it kind of covers. We'll get into a little more detail. But first, let's get to the basis of why is it that people really steal? Okay. Stealing is more from a perspective of either gaining power gaining control, if you want to call it that, or you feel that you're not getting something. We'll talk a little bit more about envy when we talk about the eighth commandment. But if you look at this, most people will steal because they're feeling excluded, that they're not part of something which is elite or special. Either they want to hurt someone because they are jealous or they're envious of that person. It could be because a person has low self-esteem as well, and they feel that stealing gives them that little kick, and that's why they'll go ahead and do it. Okay. Another very scary part is the peer pressure. That, oh, okay, if you're brave, you'll go ahead and do that. It could be stealing govers or mangoes from the neighbor auntie's compound who's very particular about it. And you'll have to kind of run away from her when she kind of figures out that someone's robbing things from her compound. And the most scary of it all is the one with the malicious intent, where you're doing stealing or you're kind of going ahead and stealing with an intent to hurt someone. Okay, that's the goal that you try to steal with. And that is one of the most scary ones that we need to be careful of. But we need to understand what stealing could also do and why is stealing such a big deal. So I'm going to introduce you to Connie over here. Connie the Confirmandi, we're going to call her that today. She's going to kind of be covering up for the questions that I'm not, unfortunately, giving you a chance to ask. But let's see what's the first question that she has. It's about how big a sin is stealing. Okay. Can you measure in terms of size how big a sin it is? Well, actually, you can't, because when it comes to stealing, it's like someone's mic is off mute. We check that. Getting a lot of background noise. Okay, moving on.
Menezes, put off your mic.
Thanks, Yamin. Okay, so stealing is stealing. Whether it's expensive, whether it's cheap, whether it's big or small, that does not make a difference. When you're stealing something, you are stealing something. Okay, and the scary part is what really transpires out of stealing. Now, if you look at the Bible, there's two passages which really call out why you shouldn't be stealing in simple words. Okay, because one who loves his neighbor will always do good, not harm them. Stealing violates the law of love because it harms our neighbor. Okay, Matthew goes on to say that do unto others as you would have others do unto you. So the simple question comes again, would you be okay with someone stealing from you? It's a big no, right? You will feel violated. You'll feel unsafe when someone steals from you. And that's the reason why the biggest problem that happens when someone steals is it breaks the value or the relationship of trust. Imagine if in your class there was a robbery of someone's cell phone, someone's ring, someone's chain, anything. Okay. And until the person knows who's stolen, who's the suspect? Pretty much everyone in that group, right? Because you don't know who the real thief is. And if you look at it, there are very few things that adversely affect the sense of unity within a community, within a group, within a set of friends, more than stealing. Because it's more like everyone is considered guilty until the person who's really guilty is found. Okay, once again, requesting the person who's off mute to please check that and turn your mics on mute. We're still getting a little static in the background.
The tech team can just mute him. Beyond Menezes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get into the two types of stealing. Okay, now May last year has covered this in a lot of detail, but this year we're kind of consolidating 3 lessons together. So we'll have to give you very brief, and I hope that you understand what we're trying to get at. The idea is not to steal, okay? Be it where you're actively stealing from someone, we'll talk about examples in that regard, or be it whether you're passively stealing where you are taking something or something's being shot for someone else because of what you have done. So let me explain how this kind of transpires. When you talk about active stealing, it's the act of taking something, as we said, that does not belong to you. It could be stealing from your office supplies, getting extra printouts, downloading information at work, saving your own personal data and using the office Wi-Fi, for example. The other thing is refusing to pay your taxes, your debts, your payments. Even sometimes if you borrowed money and not returned it to your friend, and when he asks you, you'll go like, I'll give it later, and you really don't have an intention. Okay. There's a lot of other aspects that come in when it comes to people that are grown. Companies also do this sometimes where they try to evade taxes, they try to cheat on taxes, and you'll hear so many instances that come on the news about people who fled the country trying to save themselves. Okay, they've kind of done huge scams, huge deals of money that they've taken and they're just gone. And the other one that I said, finders, keepers, losers, weepers. You found something and you think that you have the right, that it owns or it belongs to you, which is not really true, right? The first thing you want to do is find out who it belongs to. Make an effort to return it. If you can't, then probably it's a different story, but not returning something you found, thinking that you were entitled to it, is not a good deal, okay? And the last part, the theft, the act of robbery itself, be it looting, be it stealing, be it siphoning, any of those words could fit that. Taking something again that does not belong to you. Something as small as the story that goes where at a buffet, there was a little child who wanted a little more than one apple, and it had a sticker over there that said, please take only one apple because God is watching. And he goes to the next table and he notices muffin there, and he just goes ahead and writes that, oh, take as many as you want, God is busy watching the apples. Okay, we don't want to be in that kind of a scenario. We don't want to get there. So please try at any cost avoiding stealing, no matter how tempting it is, or no matter who's watching you. Integrity is key. Okay, let's talk about the passive stealing or indirect stealing. The explanations are given here. The first one is a man's negligence, which results in a loss to his neighbor. Now, how do you think this could happen? If you've gone ahead and done something which causes harm to the other person, let's say you're going ahead and having some kind of welding work in your house and there's a neighbor's car parked down. Those sparks are going to fall, the car is going to get damaged, you're causing loss to him, which may not really be intended, but you're not taking any action to prevent it. You're not notifying your neighbor that, you know what, there's something happening, please go ahead and move your property or take care of it. Okay, you might be doing this with friends as well, where you're not going ahead and informing them of something that you're aware of, be it class, be it notes, be it a change in college that your friend has missed out and it's impacting them negatively. Be very mindful. Don't do things that could negatively impact others. The other thing is a man's failure to return something lost to its owner. As I said, not returning something that's found while it is actively stealing, not making an effort to search or look for the person is a bigger issue in that. So it goes hand in hand. Okay. And the last part, failure to give what belongs to another. This really comes into play when people work for you. Think about it. People who do your work, they could be your janitors, they could be your housekeepers, they could be your domestic help. If you try to bargain with them, sometimes think about how much they are making for a living. You'll see a lot of aunties in the market, they'll wear these heavy gold chains, they'll go to the bazaar and they'll fight with the bhaiya to take that 5 rupees extra kothmir for free. Okay? Don't be like one of those. It's okay. They have work, they are doing their thing, they're trying to earn a living. Don't take away something that belongs to another person. Even when you're at an event, weddings, a lot of people go, and I know it's been a while that we haven't attended something really big due to the lockdown. But when you look at a buffet, there's always that temptation that, oh my God, I can eat everything. But when you fill up your plate and you sit to eat, someone may not get what you really like, or you're wasting that food. And think about the people missing out. Use the resources that you have, use them wisely. Do not take away from someone who really deserves it. Okay. Now let's look at the forms of stealing. We'll go ahead and take two forms really seriously, or kind of discuss them in little detail. But if you look at property and information, it's kind of very simple, right? When you're taking something which is a material that you can measure, that you can see, it's stealing property. There's no rocket science to it. It's the basic of stealing. The other scary one, which is happening a lot nowadays, is stealing information. Identity theft, credit card theft, or sometimes even people opening accounts in other people's name, right? You're kind of using someone else's name. And we had a nice instance, I think a few weeks back, a live example of information theft where someone opened an account for Orlem confirmation and was trying to get into arguments on the chat group. Okay. The other one was very scary, is the homework, and we correct your papers and we know who's not doing it right. It's information, yes, but someone else's information that you're putting. Everyone has ideas, everyone is unique, and there's so much when it comes to every detail that we talk about that you can actually go and forget everything else. You can look on Google and you'll get 10 different answers. But it's about what you understand, what is your takeaway from the information that's being shared to you and how you're going to leverage it. Okay. The two that we're going to discuss a little more in detail is the concept of emotional and religious stealing. What, according to you, is emotional stealing? Think about it. Stealing someone's name or reputation, that's where emotional stealing comes into play. Okay. We'll discuss this in a little more detail when we talk about slander and gossip, because it starts with that. But what you're doing is you're stealing someone's reputation, someone's self-esteem. And especially at this age, when you're at a very stage where I would call you like that clay, you're being molded into yourselves, your personalities as adults. If you go ahead and badmouth someone, you may not be aware of what repercussions or what effect it is really having on that person's life. Because you will say, you know what, I just said it, I didn't really mean it. Okay. And that's nothing short of the word slander. We'll get into slander a little later when we talk about Commandment 8. But at any cost, don't go ahead and steal someone's good name, someone's reputation, or try to make them feel bad for something that they're not responsible for. The other one that we're going to talk to in a little more detail is the concept of religious stealing, and that is stealing from God. When we don't go ahead and give time for ourselves in prayer, thank God for all our blessings, are we really grateful? Are we really thankful for what we received? At no point should we fail to give him praise that he deserves, because it's part of the core that we've understood, right? Keep the Sabbath holy. He's done everything for you. Don't use the blessings that are given to you selfishly. There's a very, I think in a lot of sermons, a lot of people always say this. They give this example of when you're poor, you go ahead and pray. And this is another example when people are going for their board exams. You will see all the students in the front rows of the church sitting, praying, lighting candles, doing everything. The moment the exams are over and the results are out, gone. You don't see them anymore. And that happens with the confirmation students as well. You know you're going to receive confirmation. So you're diligently there. You're there for that 6:30 mass. You're there for your rehearsals, practices. Once it's done, we don't see people in the youth group. We don't see people actively participating in the choir, the lectors. We need you to help out. We need you to be part of that entire setup. So don't steal from God. Give him what he deserves, and you will be blessed in return. That's the end of it all. Okay. Now, the other part that we want to look at, and we kind of want to touch a little bit about teaching religious error. Now, let me say this out loud. No religion preaches violence against another human being. No religion at all. Okay. Unfortunately, it's the people who teach religion erroneously. And that's also a big, big no. Okay. Religious theft, it could be in any form. It could be in the name of God. It could be in the name of religion. It could be misuse of the religious power that is bestowed upon a minister, a religious leader, or the power that he has. But if he's going to misuse that and mislead the people in the name of faith, it's a huge religious error. Now, if we think about it, even when we go to the past and we think about the Bible, there are instances of stealing. And we'll cover that before we talk about what do we do to fix if we've stolen, right? Because now we've covered a lot of different aspects when we've spoken about stealing. We've understood even things like piracy, for example, plagiarism is all part of stealing. You're going ahead taking someone else's idea, you're taking someone else's information, and the copying also is like plagiarism only. You're using someone's answers and trying to score marks on your worksheets. Okay. So look, it looks at what of the stories or some of the stories from the Bible which kind of steal or talk about stealing. Let's look at the first one, Adam and Eve. Can anyone type and let me know what was stolen over here during the story of Adam and Eve? In the chat. Anybody? Who stole or what was stolen? Apple. Okay. It's not an apple. You can try again. Anyone else? Let's a good try though. Common belief is apple, but it's just something else. Anybody else? Forbidden knowledge. Okay. It was actually the forbidden fruit which kind of gave the forbidden knowledge, or they got to know what they were not supposed to, because they were warned very specifically not to take the fruit of that tree. Not necessarily an apple, it doesn't say that anywhere, but it's a fruit. Okay. As per depiction and drawings, probably you're comfortable with that, but that's what it is. So Eve went ahead and took something that she was not supposed to, and that kind of led to everything else that we know. Okay. Let's take another example over here. Judas Iscariot. Why is Judas Iscariot over here, and what is the form of theft that he was involved in? Answers, come on. Waiting for the chat group. Okay. We all know that Judas Iscariot was the person, not really wisdom. Judas Iscariot was most known for the fact that he betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. But in addition to that, Judas was actually considered like the accountant, or he kept the money of all the disciples with him. And a lot of times he took from that money for his own personal use. There are instances of where when the lady who washed Jesus' feet with her tears and she used an expensive perfume, he said that, you know what, that perfume was worth a year's wages, and that could have been used for a poor rather than kind of going ahead and respecting and giving her kind of praises to God. So he kind of did, and there were instances where he's spoken about as thieving for that matter. Another person over here, Zacchaeus. Anyone wants to tell me what Zacchaeus did in order to kind of meet God, or what was the whole story? What did he promise to go ahead and do? What did he promise to go ahead and deserve? He said he was going to do something if he had incorrectly taken money from someone or cheated someone. What was he going to do? To gain forgiveness from God. Anyone in the chat? Come on. He decided he was going to do two things. Okay, not getting responses, so I'll tell you. This is part of your worksheet, so please be well aware of the answer. You'll have to look for a little more detail possibly. The first thing he said is he was going to go give away half of his possessions to the poor. And if there was anyone that he extorted by any chance, he was going to go ahead, and that's what Aloma said, pay back 4 times. Thank you, Aloma, for your answer. That's the correct answer. That's the second part of the answer. Now, these were more about property or physical theft, right? Now, there's another person over here who we've included in a story of theft, and that's Jonah. What did Jonah steal? Did he take something physically? What happened with Jonah? Let's see who knows this. Okay, Lester, he did not steal anything. Then why is Jonah over here? Okay, let me go ahead and explain. So Jonah was tasked by God to go ahead and proclaim his message. But Jonah was very afraid to go and spread the word of God, and he got scared. So what he tried to do is he tried to run away. He tried to run and escape the fact that he had to go and spread the word or be the prophet. And what happened is the whale or the fish ate him, and 3 days later, he was back on the shore. And that's when he realized that, you know what, I need to go spread the word of God. And he went to Nineveh and started with his prophecy. Okay. So these are just some of the examples of what has happened or stories in the Bible. But let's get to a more reality now. What do you do if you've come across an instance where you've stolen unintentionally or taken someone, spoiled someone's name, done something that you were not too happy about and want to undo it? There's 2 terms that you need to remember. The first one is repentance. Repentance, as it says, you need to go ahead and first and foremost have some kind of repose, or you need to be sorry about the fact that you've done. Okay. Yes, Lester, ask for forgiveness is the right thing. So as per Ephesians, there's a very nice statement which says that let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, work with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give who has need. Okay, so basically what we're saying is you need to go ahead and restore, repay, or return what you have stolen or fix the damage that you have caused, in addition to asking for forgiveness. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about forgiveness, a little bit more about restitution in the other commandments as well, because that comes down to one of the sacraments that we'll be covering in one of our future lessons. Okay, so let's move to the next commandment that we're covering today. And this starts with the poem, which is glorified, or the nursery rhyme, if you want to call it. Anyone wants to tell me the poem? Telling lies? No, Papa. Open your mouth. No response? I thought someone's going to type ha 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 over there, but okay. The Johnny Johnny poem is something that I think all of us have learned in school. We know it very well, and it's one of those first poems where children are taught not to steal or not to tell lies. Okay, it goes hand in hand because you're stealing sugar, you're stealing candy, and you're telling lies about it. Okay, so sounds very simple at the basis. Don't tell lies, but it's very complicated, and there's so many stories, so many issues when it comes to it. And I like this one line that Mark Twain says. He says, if you tell the truth, you don't really need to remember anything because you're speaking honestly, you're telling the truth. Because when you lie, what happens is you have to tell 100 lies sometimes to cover one lie. Okay. And in UCAT, there's a very nice definition of the concept of lying. It says lying is a form of violence because it introduces the seed of division and undermines the trust on which every human community is based. Now, how does it tie in with stealing? If you stole something, you want to cover it up, what are you going to do? You're going to lie that you didn't do that. Okay. So it kind of is not just one commandment that you're breaking, but then you're going on a whole streak of breaking things. There's a very interesting character over here who I'm sure you'll have heard of the story about. But more than Pinocchio, I'm interested if anyone remembers the name of that little creature on his nose and why it's so important. What does that creature or that thing on Pinocchio's nose do? And who's he called? What's his name? Anyone? Fairy tale stories, a little revision from the past. Nobody? Geppetto. Geppetto is the guy who created Pinocchio. There's a little small little fellow. He's a cricket. Anyone remembers his name? Not Geppetto, unfortunately. Geppetto is the guy who made Pinocchio. Aloma, try again. Okay, no issues. That is Jiminy Cricket, who was nothing but a voice of consciousness. And every time Pinocchio would try to lie or tell something, he was there to kind of make him realize that stop doing it. Okay, you don't need to lie. And with us, it comes down to that, where does lies put us in our relationship with God? Yeah, Sturrock had that answer, Jiminy Cricket. Thank you very much. But let's come to what our relationship with God has to do with the truth. Okay, there's a very, very important passage from John 14, where Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Okay, we said truth is based, or the basis for our entire religion. If we are true, we are honest, we have openness, we have comfort, we have a relationship with everyone around us. All our relationships also, okay, there's someone else who's off mute and on the roads because you can hear a lot of traffic. Can you please put yourself on mute? Okay, thank you. Okay, so Pope Benedict made this very famous or important statement where he said that indeed Jesus Christ is the personified truth who attracts the world to himself. The truth radiating from Jesus is the splendor of truth, and every other truth is a fragment of the truth that he refers. And he refers to Jesus. What is the statement that he's talking about? Anyone knows this or wants to try? Let's see if anyone can get this right. No one's typing. Okay. The statement as per John goes, for this I was born, and for this I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. And every time we lie, we go ahead and take away from that truth. And how is that hurting us? How is that impacting us? If we go ahead and look at it, someone who follows Jesus eliminates lies, falsehood, and pretense and ambiguity from the accomplishments in his life. He is transparent towards the truth and becomes a witness to the truth. Now let's look at it very, very simply. Would you like it if your friends lie to you? Would you like to be in a relationship that is based on lies? It's as simple as this. If you don't trust someone as a friend, as a companion, as someone you would like to hang out with, you won't have any relationship. Because if you look at this very nice image over here, it talks about love is about trust, and there's this two letters that are highlighted over there. Okay, when we talk about trust, it's trust that builds us as a community. Okay, so if you look at the definition of truth, truth is nothing but to be sincere and honest. You shouldn't have any malicious intent or double dealing. There should be no hidden motives in any actions that you do, because then you're not being honest to yourself, not being honest to the people around you. No hypocrisy, no flattery. Flattery is very easy, right? You tell someone that, oh my God, you're looking this way and you've done this. And a lot of your reality shows, you see that sometimes. They are good with their feedback, but sometimes there's so much flattery, you lose the whole plot of what's going on. Everybody gets that extreme praise, and then when they realize, okay, it's just flattery, it's not real, it's bursting the bubble. Okay, so be truthful, be honest, and this is the few things that you need to take care of. Okay, we're going to cover the parts of what do you do if you've lied, betrayed, or deceived someone. We're going to talk about two aspects here. The one in these images, very, very clear, very, very out there, is the whole concept of gossip. It's fun when you gossip or not? People think that it's spicy, you're getting gup is what you call it, right? Scoop on someone, information on someone. And it's so rampant because it starts with probably something that's false, something that doesn't make sense, or something that's not even true. So how do we stop it? Instead of getting into the details of why it starts, let's look at how it can be stopped, okay? The first part we're going to cover is the concept of slander. Now, I'll give you a very nice story when you talk about slander, because slander, as per definition, is saying something about another person in public that could affect the person's future. So over here, there's a story of an old man who had a new neighbor move in, and he went ahead and started telling people that his neighbor was a thief, which was not true. Okay. Unfortunately, that rumor spread to an extent that the neighbor was arrested. This young chap was arrested, and when he got arrested, went to the cops, they realized that, you know what, that isn't true. There isn't any proof because he hasn't really stolen anything. And the person was released. But what the young man did is we went ahead and sued the old man, stating that he spoiled my name. I would like to sue him for damages to my personal reputation. So the sentencing was done, the old man was called to court. And before giving his sentence, the judge decided to tell the old man that, you know what you've done is not right. But he was like, you know what, I just said something. I didn't intend to hurt the person. So he said, okay, you know what, whatever you've said about the person, I want you to write on a piece of paper. And on your way home, I want you to tear that paper into pieces and keep throwing it along the way. And tomorrow when you come back, I'll tell you what your sentence or your verdict is going to be. So the person goes, does what is told to him. Next day comes back to the judge to listen to his sentence. And that's when the judge tells him that, okay, the way you went around telling people that this man was a thief, what I want you to do to fix it is go and pick up the pieces of paper that you've thrown yesterday. And the old man gets all wild and goes like, how do you expect me to do that? It's probably already gone in the wind. And that's when the judge turns around and tells him that, you know what, even when it comes to a word that has left your mouth, incorrect, false accusation on someone that is not true, it's already gone in the wind and it's too late for you to fix the harm that you've done to this person. Okay, so just to sum up this story, a very, very important line that I would like to say over here: be masters of your own mouth than slaves of your words. Because if you can control what you say, you don't have to be guilty of something that you've caused harm or you've hurt someone. Okay, as simple as that. Now we'll get into the other part which we were talking about, which is gossip. What is gossip? Casual, unconstrained, uncontrolled reports about people which involve details that are not confirmed as true because you don't know. And the big question is, why do we gossip? There has to be some reason why we gossip, right? So let's go ahead and look, because there's multiple reasons why people gossip. Okay. Gossiping gives you a sense of superiority. When people gossip, it's usually to badmouth someone or spread rumors, as Lester said, and it gives you a sense of superiority because what you're trying to do then is make yourself feel better than the others. Okay. The problem with gossip, however, it starts showing distrust among friends because sometimes you're spreading rumors which are not essentially true. Like person A may go and tell person B that, you know what, person C has said something about you. And then you have a grudge. You don't even know whether that has happened. How that harms you? It is harming your whole concept of being a Christian witness because you are breaking the first request or the first essential basis of a relationship, that is trust. Gossip destroys your integrity because you're harming your reputation and another person's reputation as well. It's literally the end of all relationships sometimes. If you don't trust someone, you're never going to get back. Fights do, unfortunately, less to happen because of third parties, but there's a way to stop it, and we're going to get into that, okay? It ruins your reputations, it ruins others' reputations, and as they say, what goes around comes around. It could be now, it could be later, but a gossip or something that you've started as a rumor could come to haunt you later, and you need to be very, very careful of that. Stay away from it. How do you stop it? Let's go ahead and answer Connie's question here. Ask yourself if you're indulging in gossip, especially when you're talking about a person who's not present to defend themselves. Okay? The other thing, stop it before it starts. First thing you can do is change the topic. If you think that people will be offended, it's okay. Stand up. Stand up for the other person, because when they know you've done that for them, they will respect you. Because today when you're gossiping and you're doing it for someone else, think about tomorrow when you're not part of that group and they're talking about you behind your back. There's this very nice example or a anecdote over here where in a restaurant where a group of ladies always went for a kitty party, one given kitty party, everybody was silent and the waiters were very confused what is going on. So they went up to the host and they asked her, you know what, you're always such a fun group, always laughing, having fun and talking. Why is it that you're so quiet today? And the lady turns around and tells him, you know what, today everybody is present. So we don't have anyone to gossip about. Okay. So that's what happens even with your friends. If you're not present, you could be the target. And you want to avoid that, especially when you're around and someone else is being made the target. Okay. Play the role of the advocate, play the role of the person who's missing, and stand up for them as much as you can. Okay. We'll go back a little bit in history and talk about this best teaching that came from Socrates. Okay, anyone know Socrates? Who he was? Who was Socrates? In the chat group, come on. Lester is one of the quick people when it comes to answering. Let's get some other people. Aaron, you've not answered at all. Who's Socrates? Philosopher. Okay. Greek philosopher, to be a little more precise. And the whole concept of avoiding gossip was kind of built very, very nicely by Socrates. Okay. So there's this instance where he was walking through the marketplace and an acquaintance of him walks up to him and tells him that, you know what, I wanted to tell you something about your friend. And Socrates, being the wise man that he was, busy as usual, says, you know what, wait, let me stop you there. I've got 3 filters. If you can look at these filters, that's what he wanted to take him through. He said, I've got 3 filters. If you can pass all these 3, then you can go ahead and tell me the information that you have. Otherwise, I'm not interested and don't waste my time. So he asked him first, the information that you're about to tell me, have you been witness to it or have you seen it happen? And the guy says, no, but I got it from a very reliable source and that's why I wanted to tell you. He's like, stop. You don't know it's true. Is the information that you're going to give me good about my friend or it's something negative? He's like, no, it isn't good. That's the reason I wanted to tell you. He's like, okay, first things first. You don't know if it's true. You know it's not good. Then the third question I have for you is it useful for me? Is it going to make a difference to my life? And that acquaintance goes like, no, well, actually not. But I just wanted to tell you so that you would know. He's like, see, it's not true. It's not good. And it's not going to make a difference to my life. Please spare me the time. And I would not like to know that. Okay. Now, when it comes to secrets, a very, very popular term or funny definition of secrets is when people say secrets are things that you go around telling other people not to tell other people. Okay. So secrets are to be maintained in a person that trusts you. But one party or one place where we can really share our secrets is the confessional secret. Okay. We have the opportunity, if we've wronged someone, if we've broken any of these commandments, if we've done something that we're guilty for, go and confess. We're going to get into a lot of detail about confession when we do or cover the sacrament of confession because there's a lot of information about it. So we're going to kind of keep this on the backbench for now. But just one takeaway, as per Pope Francis, do not be afraid of confession because remember this, what you tell the priest is bound by the confessional law and not even trifle from your confession can be revealed by the priest. So always remember this, do not hesitate when it comes to confession. Now comes the biggest part of the whole lying that is to do with social media. This has become like the platform where you don't know what is true anymore. There's this whole new concept that I somewhere caught on called deep fakes. Has anyone heard of the concept of deep fakes? Deep fakes are so well built in that you really don't know what you're seeing is really true or not. Okay. Unfortunately, media has the responsibility of sharing information to keep us in the loop and keep us enlightened. But the way media goes ahead and sometimes shares information, it's all, as they call it in Hindi, sansani khez khabar. They want TRP ratings. They want to kind of go ahead and side someone or defend someone. And it's all about that. And you need to get a little smart in that case in terms of understanding what is fake and what is real. Okay. Always consider where you're getting your news from. Consider who's the source of the message you're getting. Has anyone heard of the glow-in-the-dark burger or tried this? Let me see if you'll know about this. Would you try it? Sounds pretty interesting, right? Is it real? It's got a McDonald's logo, it's got a funky burger, and Halloween is around the corner, so it may just be something that they're introducing for Halloween, right? Around April 1st, around Halloween, marketing companies will come up with n number of tricks to go ahead and brand or market their products. Honestly, there's no such thing as glow-in-the-dark burger, at least not as yet. You never know if they'll introduce it in the future. But always remember, there is a lot of fake news out there. There's a lot of fake messaging going on. Okay. Always validate the information. Forwarding messages without knowing the source, without knowing the reason why you're doing it is a little scary. Especially when you're forwarding in groups where people may believe you, to senior citizens, to older people. Be a little mindful, avoid that, and try to understand when you're spreading fake news. Don't do it as far as possible. Okay. Moving on. We'll move to the last commandment and then we'll come to the part of how we go and resolve it. I know we're almost at 5:12, but this one, as I said, is the short bit because this is different from all the other commandments. Every other commandment talks about a particular action, right? Don't do this, don't do that, stops you from doing something. But when it comes to do not covet, it's a little different because unlike other commandments, it focuses on your intent or it focuses on your heart, the desire that you have. Do not covet as a commitment, be it your neighbor's goods, be it your neighbor's wife, be it your neighbor's articles, anything of that sort is something where you're trying to restrict a personal desire. Okay. Now, in the old days, the Pharisees always went around trying to point out that, oh, you're not doing this correctly, you're not doing that correctly, you have to follow rituals a certain way. And God went ahead and Jesus went ahead and just said that, woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites, because what you're showing or what you're displaying on the outside, as it says, you clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but the inside, they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will also be clean. If you are not clean at heart, your actions, your words are all meaningless, because you don't have a clear conscience at the end of the day. But Connie's argument over here is quite sensible, right? I was only thinking about it. I didn't do anything. Okay. And that gets us into the entire explanation of the concept of covet, or understanding why we talk about the word covet. So while one commandment forbids the act of adultery, the other one, that is 10. So we just said, right? 9 says, 6 says, do not go ahead and commit adultery. But when we talk about 9, we say, do not covet thy neighbor's wife. That is, do not accept or come to that point that you desire something that's not yours. Okay. The forbidding of the desire of wanting someone or envying someone for something that they have also forbids stealing. So it kind of all ties in together. If you have a strong desire to own something that doesn't belong to you, you'll kind of go and commit the action. And that's why this particular commandment is really essential, because it tries to stop you or nip things in the bud. This is one of the concepts where it comes in from is during the Sermon on the Mount. Now, this is one sermon or one passage, if you can go ahead and read it from the Bible. It's in Matthew chapters 3, 4, and 5. And it talks about, or it is one of Jesus's longest discourses in the Bible. Some of the very popular things or very well-known things that come out of this passage is the Beatitudes and the prayer, or the Our Father, if you want to call it that. Okay. Jesus goes ahead and takes time to make people understand that it's not always actions, but it's sometimes the thoughts that we have where we need to restrict ourselves. Okay. These images are kind of pretty self-explanatory, right? You see someone's new phone, new shoes, new house, new car, and it's like, oh my God, he's so lucky, he got this, and I don't have it. Instead of being jealous, I would say the first thing you probably want to do is make sure you count your blessings, okay? Because if you're jealous of someone, you'll have some of these issues coming up, be it envy, injustice, violence. You want to probably rob, thieve, you'll have the greed against something, okay? So what do you do to go ahead and reduce that entire concept of envy that you have? First things first, count your blessings, okay? Think about it. If you are on this call attending this class today, it means that you have formally gone through a full education, you've covered your 10th standard. Second, it means that you have a home where you're sitting and you're watching this session. You have internet, you probably have a smartphone or a computer because you're viewing this. Now think about the population and think of the people that don't have these basic rights or facilities. Before envying someone for what they have, be thankful for what you have, okay? And that's something that will help you decrease envy. Be happy when people are rewarded. A simple thing that you can think of, if some close friend of yours or some family member of yours gets rewarded, gets appreciated for something that you do, you will feel genuine joy, right? Because you're happy, it's a family member. But when others go ahead and achieve something, why that sense of discontent is the word I'll call it. Why that sense? Okay. We need to understand that our blessings are ours and God has a plan for each one of us. He has something in store for us and we'll all get there. It'll take time, but we all have a benevolent plan in place for us. Okay. So always remember, do not go ahead and increase envy. Instead, go ahead and follow the simple life. This is one of the discussions that we're going to talk about today, because when we think about reducing envy, when we rejoice in the joy of others, when we believe that God has a benevolent plan for us, when we set our hearts in search of the true goal or the true desire and we practice poverty in spirit, that's when we are rich. And Jesus has this very important statement that he makes, and this I want you all discussing in your chat or your discussion today. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. What does this mean? If you look at this image, that actually tells you the story of why this entire statement is made, because Jesus gives this example of this lady who really goes ahead and puts pretty much everything she has towards charity versus the people who were giving out of their wealth. Okay? Think about this. Please discuss this when you go on. And we'll come down to now closing or summarizing in the next 2 minutes all that we've done. In a very short sum, I'd like everyone to please close your eyes as we say this prayer together. Okay? Create in me a clean heart, O God, and put a new and right spirit within me. That's all we look for. Thank you very much. Please open your eyes. The good news is that even if we have gone ahead and wronged someone, we have an opportunity to go ahead and resolve this during our course of confession. Okay? The season, the holidays are coming in. A lot of you do have time on hands. Please go ahead and use that. I know we've not done reconciliation as a sacrament as yet, but we are going to cover it. I would request you to go ahead and take time to look at that, understand it better, because on and on, as humans, our goal should be very, very simple. What we should yearn for the most is to know God better, is to know Him as our Creator, our Lord, and our Redeemer. Because if He is willing to forgive us, we need to be sure that we go ahead and ask for that forgiveness that we deserve. Okay? With that, I'd like to thank you all for your session. Please get on your groups for your discussion, and you're going to discuss each commandment with one of the questions that you have. And if you have any questions, I'm sure your teachers will be more than happy to help you. Thank you.